as I think about the coming holidays and the purpose of the holidays, and it was just to awaken us to that part of us that is the Christ. For many years, I did not embrace the idea of Christmas, and it was a pagan idea, and the tree and all those lights, and then one year I decided that I would look at that idea of Christmas, or that pagan holiday as we call it, on the third Sunday in this month. We will share with you how the whole idea came into play. As Rick said, he won't be here, but he will be here in spirit because he has done the research work for me and to share with you. Our theme for the month is the reappearance of the Christ. The reappearance of the Christ. In the world of Christianity, we find the spirit of expectancy and the demand for a manifestation and a symbolic happening, which we call by various names, but what is usually referred to as the advent of Christ, or Jesus coming back to the earth. This may be, as you know, maybe an actual physical coming as he did in Palestine. I thought about it all these years, about Jesus coming back in form as he did in Palestine. And I concluded that if they didn't know who he was then, we probably wouldn't know who he is now. So I put the idea of his physical appearance to rest as far as I was concerned. It may be an overshadowing, a definite overshadowing of those who have chosen to live by the spiritual law. That realization of the Christ might come to us at that time, or during that time, or any time. Or the coming may take a tremendous inflow of the Christ principle, the Christ life and love working out through the human family. Take a few minutes to think about those three ideas. A definite overshadowing, or in the physical form, or the tremendous inflow of consciousness of the principle. Perhaps all three possibilities may be found simultaneously on our planet. For we have those who are looking for him. It is told that, as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. And for those who are looking for him to come in the physical form, I'm sure there will be some kind of example for them. For those who believe that it would be an overshadowing of love energy, of this Christ principle, then that's the way it will happen for us. Records have it that this trip for Jesus is to meet the needs of the thirsty nations of the world, those who are thirsty for truth, for right human relations, and for loving understanding, for right human relationships with ourselves. Turn to page 357, second paragraph, if you will, and let's read. Mm-hmm. 357. Together, Eckhart, one of the great mystics of the Middle Ages, said, God never begot but one Son, but the eternal, forever begetting, the only begotten. This conveys the same sense as our New Testament statement, world without end. This world forms and disintegrates, as the body does, but creation goes on forever. Therefore, the eternal is forever begetting, that which is the realization of its own perfection. It is an eternal process. It is the Son of God, and the Son of God is Christ. The sentence, the eternal is forever begetting that which is the realization of its own perfection. To me, the Christ, as the only Son of God, means the individual that realizes his own perfection. When we realize that we are whole, perfect, and complete, that there needs to be nothing added to us. We are just right, just as we are. When we accept this perfection within us, then the Christ consciousness, we move into the Christ consciousness to begin to express the love, goodwill, good fortune for all people. On page 359, too, he wrote, Christ is the embodiment of the divine sonship, with which comes with varying degrees of power. To all people, in some degree, Christ is a universal presence. And he goes on to say that Christ is not a person, it is a principle. Jesus said, I am come as an example for you to realize eternal life. And he could not say, I am for anyone but himself. Eternal life is not a given. Now, I thought it was for a long time that I was in the fundamental religion. They told us that we had already had eternal life. And I later understood that I must develop that consciousness. Yes, we have the consciousness for eternal life simply by using the law, the universal law in our life every day. But it is a consciousness to be developed, and the choice is up to us. Dr. Holmes wrote, as the human gives way to the divine, in all people, they become the Christ. Now let us look at the three modes of his reappearance. First, his physical reappearance among humankind. It is possible he will return in body, and that will depend upon the results of the overshadowing and outpouring of love essence on the planet. That depends upon those who are receptive to his love. We have said many, many times that love is the only healer. And if we do not bring down the essence of love within our life from our spirit, then we have no love to give. We have no essence, no energy of love to give to others. Hence we said, to say to yourself, or out loud, it doesn't matter, I love myself 5,000 times a day. And by saying that, something happens within you. I tell my students, don't take my word for anything. Prove it to yourself. Whatever I say, I can back it up. But in order for you to get it, you must do it yourself. Dr. Lundy, one of Dr. Holmes' students, said it's a do-it-yourself religion. If you don't do it, then it doesn't happen for you. It's all an inside job. The second mode of his reappearance is the pouring out of the Christ life or consciousness upon the masses everywhere and in every nation. This spiritual inflow will bring about a reorienting of the human desire and will evoke the emotional reactions to his presence. This involves the release of the energy of goodwill into the hearts of humankind, predisposing them toward right human relations. So we have been working for 50 years, or I have. Dr. Holmes started this teaching in 1927. Here I came in 1937, and when I picked it up and began to practice, and then I began to understand that the overshadowing or the outpouring of the Spirit of Christ is simply the energy that comes down from this level of our being down into our world each time we use those words. And when we use just the opposite of those words, the opposite of love, joy, peace, wisdom, beauty, life, and power, then we create down here, we create chaos for ourselves. So Dr. Holmes said you can go there, but you can't stay there. Meaning that we can go into the opposites, or what I call the unbelief, but you can't stay there. And that's simply because if you have brought enough love essence down into your consciousness and have embodied that energy and living out of that energy every day, well, it cannot. Scripture says spirit cannot dwell in an unclean place. And the unclean place would be those times that we're in the unbelief or just the opposite. Dr. Holmes said, no problem. Okay, so you go there, but you can always come back. We can come back simply by stating or by saying love, joy, peace, wisdom, beauty, life, and power, or whatever it is in front of us. He reminded us that that mental work is definite. So we begin with the psychological aspect of our being, which we call the soul, and we look into ourselves as to what is causing this in my life. Before I really understood science of mind, I noticed I was repeating the same patterns. And I repeated a pattern for 20 years. Slow learner. And I found a sacred contracts that helped me to realize why I was repeating this habit for 20 years. When I began to build upon the light side or the light side of my personality, I began to develop faith, wisdom, patience. All of this came as a result of my desire to want to to change my behavior patterns. And as a result, I know today that it all happens within me. We have to come to that realization that there's nothing outside of us. Everything we see is simply a reflection of what is going on within us. It is our spirit telling us what in symbolic language, what level of consciousness we are on, what we are thinking about. When I look at those flowers that Elaine so beautifully arranged, I see beauty. So when I look at those flowers, I tell myself, that is symbolic, Alma, of you to call down beauty. So I form affirmations of beauty around the thought that I just received or what I saw outside of me. And I get back on track. The Father is the I am presence for which we reach through our Christ consciousness, through love. And if we don't have the love, then we get up there, but then we do not enjoy the benefit of that consciousness, the total benefit of that consciousness. It is this establishing of right relationships with the I am, which is our major objective, and the major objective of his coming back to the earth, overshadowing, possibly physical, possibly the outpouring of his love essence through the world. The masses everywhere will be responsive to the work and the message of Christ. And all religious disciplines called by, other religious disciplines are called by other names. In Buddhism, and I only know Buddhism, is Allah, is Nirvana. And all of the other major religions, they have their word that means the same thing as Christ. If you can remember now that the English language was translated from Aramaic to Greek, from Greek to Latin, then from Latin to English, and it lost some of its words along the way. It lost some of its potency along the way. But we have that which is within us that leads us to this information, so we will know. So we will know how to develop that Christ consciousness. And I can only say the only way I know is to tell yourself you love yourself 5,000 times a day. And I know it's difficult. It's very difficult. I could not, when my teacher gave me that exercise, I could not see myself not loving myself. I took care of myself. I ate good food. I dressed well. I obeyed the cleanliness habits. And when I told him that, he said, "That's not who you are." He said, "That's your body." He said, "Yes." He said, "Most of us on the planet takes care of our body through these methods. But I'm talking about your soul. What is in your soul?" And I sat there waiting for him to tell me how I did not love myself. And he only mentioned one word. He looked at me. He said, "How much do you love your mother?" And I cried for 30 minutes.
Your what?
My mother. Because that was a sore spot with me. I was my father's child. My sister was my mother's child. And I did not feel that my mother loved me. And I stand today knowing that she loved me with everything that she had, because she wasn't taught how to love. Since I have been taught how to love, I teach my children how to love so they can move through it. The overshadowing of the Christ Spirit is influencing the minds of those who practice love. And this work will be done on the mental plane, and we will receive the energy through our mind of new ideas of love and right relationship. And that was his purpose in the beginning. But when he came to over 2,000 years ago, according to history, we were just moving out of our animal stage, and I would just imagine that we're about 2/3 out of the animal brain now, so that we can begin to reach into the human brain. And the human brain is of love. The animal brain is of fight or flight, as we said, and as Rick read in our daily reading this morning. So when we think about, we have not been in these bodies long enough to develop that consciousness of humanhood. But when we begin to practice love, we make those quantum leaps into our spirit and bring that love essence down. Because we've said to you, every time you say love, your spirit just pours it out. Because your spirit only gives, and that's all it gives. 24/7, it only gives the essence or the energy of love, joy, peace, wisdom, beauty, life, and power. Jesus coming to the earth was to teach us unconditional love. Now, how much do we love ourselves unconditionally? We don't condemn ourselves for what we've done. Now that we know, no, we don't do it anymore. But just take a look at all the patterns of all the times we've always said how we have deframed our spirit as saying, "Oh, I can do better than that," or you know the other words that you say to condemn yourself. Well, then today is the day that we can heal it, and we can heal it by pouring in love essence. And that's how we begin to develop that consciousness that Christ consciousness, so that we can express only that through our life. More emphasis has been placed on Jesus' death by fundamental religion. And I looked at that as well. So it is for us, we look forward to the birth of the Christ within us, the birth of that Christ consciousness. And we can't say when it will happen. I can't tell you when it will happen. All I know is that if you say love, if you use those words in your everyday dealings, then it will happen. And it will just happen. As some of the songs that we're going to sing during this season. And it's all talking about the coming of the Christ consciousness. Every song that we've had is talking about the Christ consciousness and our behavior patterns, how we react to the coming of the Christ. His work will be done through our minds, as it is now, through ideas. For years and years, we have sat around looking for something to drop out of the sky. According to the Bible, manna came from heaven, and the children of Israel were fed. So today, I was thinking that bread or food was dropped out of the sky for them. And I now understand that the Bible, being written as it is, simply was telling us that we receive our manna from heaven, heaven being above the mental plane. We receive our manna every day. We receive that love essence every day, and it is up to us to do what we want to do with it. So we practice awareness of all events occurring in our life. We practice awareness in all events occurring into our life, looking at what is this for me? What is my spirit trying to tell me? And that way we can move so slowly and surely into the Christ consciousness. Let us read page 363-4. Uh, 361-4, excuse me. Together, Christ, are we ready? Christ, the idea of universal sonship, the entire creation, both visible and invisible. There is one Father of all. There is one Father, conceiving within himself, gives birth to all divine ideas. The sum total of all these ideas constitutes the mystic Christ. Jesus understood his own nature, and knew that as a human, God is divine. It manifests the Christ nature. Jesus never thought of himself as different from others. His whole teaching was that he did what he did, others could do. He located God and the kingdom of heaven within himself. He had plunged beneath the material surface of creation and found a spiritual cause. This cause he called God or Father. So I understand when he wrote here, he plunged beneath the material surface of creation and found this spiritual cause. You see, we created the opposites of love, joy, peace, wisdom, beauty, life, and power. And Jesus went beyond that. Jesus went into or beyond his images, feelings, and thoughts of his creations, and he found the spiritual cause and began to live them. We are to do the same thing. He is the example of what we are to do. So in closing, the reappearance of Christ. Think about it this week. What do you really think? How do you really believe? What do you really believe about Jesus returning to the earth? Either in an overshadowing of Christ, of that love essence and energy, or love energy, or is he coming in the physical form? Or if it is simply an idea that we hold in mind. So I've chosen to hold the highest idea in mind. And whatever that idea is for you, we ask that you simply contemplate it this week. If you've never looked at your Christmas and why you do things around Christmas. I've always wanted to know why I did things. So coming up, this season coming up, we are sharing ideas to help you to come to another place in mind to see that truly the Christ is reappearing in your life daily. Let us pray. Lord, teach us how to pray. Teach us how to love. Teach us how to bring goodwill to all men, all humankind. And as we bring our focus back to sitting in the chair, we give thanks for our individual message. And as we continue through the service, we'll continue to be inspired to seek the appearance of Christ in our life. And so it is. So I let it be. And so